Ladies and gentlemen, if you will check your watches, it's spoilerin time. We are going to spoil for you The Shield, Episode 10, Season 5, Game of Thrones, Episode 6, Season 5, Mad Men finale. Even though Brian hasn't seen it, I requested that I spoil it for him, as well as give you a movie draft update. But first, Brian Brushwood, why do you want me to spoil Mad Men for you?
You know, because I just acknowledge that for whatever it is, Mad Men, it seems like Mad Men offers a place that is enchanting and hypnotic, talented actors. But unfortunately, just, after watching a season and a half, I got like 2 seasons through it, and I was like, oh, this is never going to progress. This is never going to go anywhere. They're all going to walk in a circle, and then the music will stop, and I'll worry about who's going to get a seat, and then maybe somebody will be out of the game, and then they're going to start the music again and walk around. It's like a carousel, Tom. It's like it just keeps coming around.
It's like a cakewalk.
There you go. That too. So I just realized like that's something I don't mind knowing everything in. And it's like I've heard bits and pieces about there's like a kind of a Don Draper hippie phase as they go into the 70s. Is that what's going on?
Well, okay. I mean, sure. That's like saying to someone like, so The Shield, it's a bad bald cop.
Yeah.
Bad bald cop, right? It's about a bad bald cop. Yeah.
I didn't mean to offend, by the way. I just know.
It's not offensive. It's like, well, yes. And if you leave it at that, you're going to get the wrong impression, right?
Sure.
Because that's exactly true with Vic Mackey. It's like a guy who leaves his wife, right? It's a cop who leaves his wife. That's what that show's about? No, it's and sort of like I haven't seen the season finale of The Shield yet, so I can't make a proper analogy. But the Don Draper hippie is the finale, which in very typical Matt Weiner style leaves you open to determine what actually happened to Don Draper. And so the story is about a lot of different things. A lot of people feel it is the story of Betty Draper's death, because all through it now, people are going back and finding these layered references to the fact that she is going to die.
Which,
and
by the way, this is awesome because this is literally the first time I'm hearing that Betty Draper dies in the series. Yeah. This is great.
And she doesn't die in the series. The penultimate episode, you find out that she has lung cancer and 6 months to live. She decides that she is not going to seek aggressive treatment and get chemo because she's like, what? So I stretch it out to a year that's 6 months of misery? No, I am not going to die like my mother, dragged out over a long time. And she has said before in the series, I want to die while I still have my looks. She's very
vain.
Appearance conscious.
She probably thinks this song is about her. She's so vain.
And so you have this beautiful scene of Betty with her daughter Sally trying to explain, and her daughter going like, people won't understand that you just love the drama so much that you won't even cure yourself of cancer. And Betty kind of very rationally saying, that's not what it is. It's that I don't want to be miserable, and I don't want to make you all miserable, and there's nothing I can do to stop this, which in the 60s, it is a death sentence. There's no like, hey, you could always go into remission. It's like, chances of remission are almost nothing. So that's Betty Draper's story. Don Draper gets put in the most successful ad agency in the country after they buy the agency he's a part of, and then leaves. He just walks out and just starts driving around on a road trip.
And this is all just in the last episode we see all this?
No, this is what happens the second to last. Like a lot of the stuff is set up in the second
leading up.
Episode. But basically, the series finale ends up being a sort of resolution of current threads to various characters and pointing them in new directions, but not resolving anything. So, for instance, Peggy has always been looking for, her personal life, and she finds it with Stan unexpectedly, but she stays at McCann Erickson. There's this whole thing.
Is Stan the one she was dating at the very beginning? Is that
no? Stan, she was never dating Stan.
Okay, right, whatever.
In fact, we didn't even know they liked each other.
Hey, you know what? Just call them all Larry, as far as I'm concerned. It's
right. Well, the people who did watch it might get confused.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
In
fact, only refer to characters as their closest Avengers counterpart from now on. So this is about Don Stark. Who
I don't even know. No, Don isn't even Tony Stark. That's more Sterling, I think.
Wow, this is going deeper than I meant
yeah,
for it to.
Sergeant Sterling is to me the Tony Stark. Don has got the talent, though. He's maybe a Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner, yeah.
Yeah.
Does he ever Hulk out?
He's got talent. He's almost like a Tony Stark,
but he lets out.
He does unexpected things. Like
he turns into the Incredible Hobo.
Turns large and green. In the other case, just leaves and goes off on a road trip. Right?
So he does. He turns into the Incredible Hobo. He goes back to his secret hobo roots.
The Incredible Hobo. So here's the thing with Don Draper. Don Draper has always been, having horrible personal life. He faked his identity. He was a guy named Dick. And he stole his officer's identity when his officer was killed in Korea by him accidentally.
Oh wait. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so that's one thing is like in one of the it may have been the penultimate episode or the third to last episode, Don admits that to someone for the first time, other than the real Don Draper's wife, whom he made an arrangement with. No one else has known that. And certainly no one has known the entire circumstances. And he's in a Korean VFW hall. Well, he's in a VFW hall with a bunch of Korean vets. And he admits it to them. And they all are like, that is safe space. That we all had horrible things happen to us there. So there's like closure to things like that have happened in these last few episodes. But in this last episode, he ends up in Los Angeles because he's just kind of taken this like Incredible Hobo tour where he like helps this young kid who reminds himself of himself, who's trying to become a con man. And he's like, no, you're doing it wrong. You don't want to ever get to a point where you can't go back to a town. You don't want to burn him that bad. And he gives him his car. Just like, here, take my car. Don't waste this opportunity. He then in the final episode is apparently somewhere in Nevada as a test driver for race cars on the salt flats, just hanging out with these kind of hippie mechanics. And that's when he finds out from Sally, his daughter, that Betty has cancer and is not going to treat it. Then he calls Betty, and he falls apart after that. And he ends up in Los Angeles with the daughter of his friend, who he has always kind of helped take care of and help out, and she's always had problems. And she invites him up to a retreat. He goes up to this retreat. He can't help her. She leaves. He's ditched there. He doesn't have a ride. They say it's going to be a couple days before he can get a ride. So he ends up going, having a breakdown, going into one of these open sessions. And there's a guy dressed in very typical fatherly clothing of 1970, talking about his life and how he has the wife and he has the home and he has the job and he doesn't feel like he's there, and he tells this whole long story about it. And Don just goes over and gives him a hug because, in my interpretation, Don looks at this guy as, this is the guy who has everything that I haven't been able to have and that I've been pursuing, and he's unhappy still. And so the very last scene, okay, is Don out on a lawn doing the Om meditation pose, the classic 60s meditation pose, saying Om, and a smile comes up on his face. And we cut right in to the Coke ad. I'd like to buy the world a Coke. It's the real thing.
Okay, so
Leading you to wonder, did he go back to McCann Erickson, where Coke was the client that has been being dangled? They've even told Don, you could have Coke. They've even said when Don called Peggy Olson, it's like, look, they'll take you back. Did he actually go back after having that retreat and go, here's how we sell Coke. We use this. We use the hippie retreat feeling, and we sell that. That's how we sell it. Or was that just a fake out, and like Don is now happy and off living that life for real? He finally found reality.
So no resolution on it, but you did answer my big question, was whether or not the Coke had been a thread that had been dangled out beforehand, which clearly it had. Was that like a big, as you went into it, like, I don't know, are they going to get Coke, or that was just a background thing?
Coke was always held up as like, well, that's the dream account, right? Someday you could work on Coke. That would be the account to work on.
That's held up as the ideal.
Right. And then when McCann Erickson came in to acquire, they bought Sterling Cooper, and then they decided to merge them, which is essentially saying we're closing Sterling Cooper and we'll lay off anybody we don't want to keep. when they're selling them on this idea, they point to everybody and they mention a dream account that they have at McCann Erickson that could become yours if you're part of this merger, right? And when they point at Don, they say Coke. And they even characters remark on it later, like when they pointed at me, they said this BS account, but Don they say Coke. Like it's held up as the holy grail of everything, and it is the last thing you see is the actual. I'd like to teach the world to sing Coke.
From everything you've told me, it sounds like you're leaning towards he does go back as Michael Jordan and comes back to basketball and slaughters it. But can you sell me on the other side? Because I've heard
the other side. I mean, this is classic Matthew Weiner. He's saying you, the reader or viewer, decide what happens. I am not going to spoon feed you the answer. You can see the lady or you can see the candle. It's up to you how you look at this. And there's very much a world in which Don finds this inner peace and reality and finally the answers that he's been looking for and stays on the California coast and becomes this hippie. We've been seeing elements of that throughout this entire last half of the season as he's, hoboed around the country. And that this Coke ad is the pale reflection of that reality that Don has now achieved. This Coke ad is basically, the reaching out of McCann Erickson saying, but this is what you would have had. You would have had this pale imitation of it, but now you have the real thing instead of Coke, whose slogan is the real thing.
Right on. What's your guess? Not that it matters. It's not.
I think he goes back to McCann Erickson and pitches the Coke ad.
That's what it sounds like to me.
But there's no right or wrong answer. If you believe the other, you're also right.
Right.
Like there is a lady and there is a candle. You could switch back and forth if you want. You could see. Well,
and I like the fact that it's a fairly binary interpretation because it's not like you wonder if the Coke ad got made. It definitely got made, and somebody was definitely responsible for it.
I imagine people are coming up with alternate theories that are not one of those two, though. Like it's a pretty rich tapestry that Weiner has.
What about this? Let me propose my theory. That,
based on never seeing any.
The Coke ad existed in a universe outside of Don Draper. Like Don Draper doesn't exist in this universe, and instead some nameless, faceless, I'm sure fairly successful ad executive. But in this universe, there is no Peggy, there is no Don. And in fact, in this universe, somebody comes up with the idea of a fictionalized version of Don and Peggy and their adventures. And then we move in to the movie draft. Oh, you weren't ready for that, were you? Ha ha!
Hey, how did we not start with the movie draft?
Because you were too excited about Mad Men. You jumped right into it, man. I wasn't going to stop you. You were on fire. I'll tell you what's
notes wrong is what happened.
I'll tell you who else is on fire is freaking GFQ still killing it with the best purchase of the draft so far. Furious 7 at $343 million. Amtrekker not looking great with 80% of his budget spent on Avengers Age of Ultron. Still moving forward, $372 million, now in third place at this week's box office. What do you think? You think it gets a bump, or do you think it keeps falling down? Because we got Tomorrowland coming out this weekend. We got Poltergeist coming out this weekend. Mad Max is lighting up the Metacritic, and all the reviews have been phenomenal. What do you think happens to Avengers?
Hey, you're burying the headline. The top grossing movie of the weekend was Pitch Perfect 2.
Yeah.
For all the rave reviews Mad Max got, Pitch Perfect 2 won the weekend.
I guarantee you, one person who called it right now in the chat, Gatowag, Brant Hughes, he called it. He said Pitch Perfect 1 was amazing, and he's super stoked about Pitch Perfect 2. So I guarantee you.
You know what? Frog Pants had both, which, think of it this way, $115 million gross for $40.
Yeah, but for $37, GFQ got 3.5.
Well, not opening weekend. They didn't get $3.5 million. What they get? Or $350 million? What did they get opening weekend for Furious 7?
I don't think it's got. I don't think Mad Max plus Pitch Perfect will even make it past $250 million. I think they wind down fairly quickly as we get into
Well, Mad Max is getting a lot of positive reviews and also a little bit of controversy, a minor bit of controversy, which is going to drive it for a little extra momentum. I'm not even sure how long. Pitch Perfect 2 will last another weekend or two. I swear to you.
I agree. I do agree. I do agree. But again, it's like Pitch Perfect 2 is right now at 70 million. So you figure, let's say it doubles it before it starts winding down. That's still only 150 million total we're looking at. I mean, which good, not bad, especially for $18. Makes it one of the better buys, but again, nowhere near the level of a Furious 7 buy.
Is a $115 million opening for 40 better than Avengers: Age of Ultron for 80?
Oh my God, yes. Dude,
Avengers. I mean, looking at that,
get this. Like looking I'll be surprised. I'll be genuinely shocked if Avengers: Age of Ultron even shows up in the top half of buys in this draft. It's going to be one of the turkeys. It's going to be anyone who has it in their draft is doomed, and that includes Amtrekker for sure.
So next week, Frog Pants again. Maybe this is a strategy in the making. Like buy an entire weekend of big movies and then buy a piece of the next weekend. And then you get all of that next weekend. You get more of the next weekend's gross. But they've got Poltergeist. And then you've got Night Attack, Tomorrowland, which you seem nervous about. I haven't seen any bad reviews, though. I think this is going to do well.
Well, keep in mind, part of the reason that we pushed Tomorrowland was because it was a holiday weekend. And Brad Bird and, Disney, and it's tough to want to bet against any of those. The reviews for Tomorrowland are a bit scattershot. They're not bad, but there are some who, like it a lot, and it's just they're selling optimism, which doesn't necessarily get people rushing out to those to buy that popcorn.
Well, and I have noticed, having gone for the holiday weekend thing in the past, that it can bite you back. And if it's not the right movie,
yep,
it can work against you. You can have a movie actually do worse because people are busy with barbecues and family stuff, and they don't end up going to the movies.
Yep. Agreed. We'll see, man. This is what I love about this game, is who knows.
But how about this? We have a solo first place chat realmer right now. Bomb Diggity, 520 million, because Bomb Diggity is the only one who has Furious 7, Longest Ride, Paul Blart, Mall Cop 2, Unfriended, and Mad Max Fury Road.
So he has all the movies. By the way, this is the ongoing crazy mystery to me, is how the chat realm All-Stars, we always seem to have just one winner, which is amazing to me because there's so many combinations. You would think you'd get a lot of 8-way ties. There's no way he's going to stay up there, though, because Paul Blart underperformed, and he had Unfriended that didn't blow everything up. Mad Max isn't even, by the numbers, that great a purchase. You would have been much better with Pitch Perfect 2.
And then Team DTNS gets our first movie in 2 weeks. Go
any minute now.
San Andreas.
Yeah, get ready for Mad Tom Fury money making on the movie draft.
The best disaster porn you'll see all summer. San Andreas.
The best disaster porn was Age of Ultron. Oh God.
Oh,
sorry,
I see what you did there. Speaking of disasters, and actually kind of porny too sometimes. Game of Thrones. Jesus. Shall we move on?
Yeah, I guess that's taking. Yeah, Game of Thrones. Hey Tom, it's the weirdest thing. I was watching Game of Thrones, and I felt like,
and a hockey game broke out.
No, I just felt like it was similar to a book I'd read once, but for the life of me, I couldn't point to any two things. All right, I'm not going to bury the lead. This was the end of caring or even seeing the similarities between the books and this. Every single storyline.
What's funny is I always go look at the Wired write-up now to see what was in the books. There was actually more in this episode that was in the books than I expected, and probably in some cases more than was in last week's episode. But even those things are different.
Yeah. Well, everything's different now. There's no longer a single pristine, untouched storyline. Every single thing has been changed now.
Arya is pretty close.
Which one?
Arya.
Yeah.
It's not Jaqen, and she has to do something different before she is allowed through the door.
But she is off across the narrow sea, going through the trials to become
close to her actual story.
Fairly close, but substantially different. Yeah.
Sansa Stark and Theon Greyjoy.
Very different.
Very different.
Yep.
Well, it's not even that's Jane Poole's story, but it's even different from Jane Poole's story.
Right. And then you also have first of all, okay, let's go from I want to end on a positive story, pro-story note. So I'm going to start with what I liked the least. The thing I liked the least, and again, I like the show. I like everything. Don't worry about it. But
why do you hate the show, Brian?
Man, oh man, was I not a fan of Braun and Jamie just popping out in Southern California in clearly the backlot of HBO studios, where it's like no establishing shots of Dorne, no sneaking through the city to get into the heart of whatever, just sort of like, hey, so anyway, we're here. We're going to fight in front of these palm trees. Let's do some of the crappiest choreography in the entire series so far. Just kind of slap our swords together for a bit. We're like, oh, you got me. I guess that's a plot thread. It was the most disappointing. I think them appearing and the acting with Marcella and all that, I think that might have been the single weakest segment in all of Game of Thrones. Certainly tied for top 5.
Yeah, it didn't bother me at all.
Really?
Not at all.
Palm trees in the background.
I'm not trolling you. I'm not saying you're wrong. Like, didn't even cross my mind while I was watching it. I mean, I could sort of see the argument for like, oh, it would have been nice to see how they got into Dorne, because then we could have seen some more of Dorne. But it didn't strike me at the time. Like, we knew they were headed there, and so we just cut out the middle of the man and didn't bore us with a long, drawn-out sneaking into the city scene. And it's like, okay, we knew they were after Marcella, so they got there. And now what happens? That's the way I thought.
What's funny is because you didn't see it, I immediately look at the chat room and I'm like fist pumping. I'm like, yes, people agree with me. So apparently it's resonating with someone out there, and that's fine. I just don't want to be the one lone. I don't know.
Who cares? It's your opinion.
I'm just curious what they're up to, because they don't do very many things thoughtlessly, and I don't know if they're trying to wedge this in for something they're setting up later, but it just felt phoned in a way that we normally don't see on the show.
Marcella was not very good. Maybe that's part of it. Because it's the Jamie part didn't bother me much.
Yeah, but even then, can you remember anything he said?
I can't remember anything anybody said.
No, but
I can't remember anything Sansa said.
This is oh no. Well, you could certainly remember.
No, I'm just telling you. I don't think that's a fair test. I cannot tell you anything.
I can said. Though, but like.
Well, okay.
Sansa.
But you didn't ask
Sansa
yourself.
says, "I am Sansa Stark of Winterfell, and I am not frightened by you."
You can remember things, and that's fair. Okay.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is normally the dialogue is punchy and good. You know, it's like I remember. You know that it clearly impacted. When Tyrion points out that why am I blanking on on the Bear and the Maiden Fair is all I want to call him. Jorah. He stumbles on telling Jorah that his dad died defending, or not even defending Castle Black, but stabbed in the back by his own men, right, or whatever. It's like, the dialogue is punchy and it has a moment.
Oh, you didn't know. Okay, now I remember that one.
Yeah, right. And plus also seeing and this was something I think that was conveyed in the books, but done very well here on the show as well, is Tyrion, as strange as it sounds, finding himself captured by slavers. Tyrion finds himself in his strongest element because he has nothing but his wits, and he digs down and he speaks directly. He doesn't say, do you know who I am? He doesn't say, do you know who this is, or where we're headed? He says, yeah, but how are you going to know it's a dwarf dick unless you cut it off in front of them? And he's like, well, that's a practical thing. And so he speaks it. And then he turns and then he speaks a different language when it comes to saying, here's why you shouldn't kill Jorah, right? And it's like, this is one of my favorite arcs of it from the book that we're beginning now. The adventures of Tyrion dealing with slave traders.
It's circus people who get him in the book, not slavers.
Well, he ends up a slave, and again, hey, guess what?
It's a circus, though. Go back and look it up. He's part of a grotesquerie as he figures out what he's been bought for. But he definitely wears slave bells. That it seems as if they're not going to do that. That they're just going to take
plug your ears as part of our not trying to spoil you agenda. We will speculate briefly. I think we are going to see him in some kind of performing troupe. I think we are going to see all of those. We may get there in a different way, but I think that'll definitely he will enter the grotesquerie.
We might end up there on a separate path because. But yeah, I was surprised when they're like, oh, we're just slavers. We want to kill you, because that is a different approach.
Ken from
and I
Chicago.
Felt like maybe that was good though. I was hopeful. Now you've dashed my hopes a little bit because I was hopeful that we were just going to skip all that and go straight to Daenerys.
Skip it. That's the best part, man.
I mean, it's a great part in the book, but let's move this along.
No. Take your time,
man. Daenerys, yeah.
Take your time.
I don't want to mess around with that. That's just delaying what I wanted. Let's get to the good part.
Ken from Chicago
and everything, but.
Ken from Chicago in the chat has two great points. Number one, he points out a punchy dialogue, what we were talking about, like that moment, like how it's a dwarf swang, and he's like, well, because it'll be small, and he goes, guess again. Like that moment, the implication was fantastic. But also, Ken from Chicago also noticed what I noticed, which the irony of all the slavers being people of color, and that the slaves being taken in were white European-looking dudes, which I thought was, definitely intentional and also very right for this universe, I thought.
Cool
story, bro.
No, I got, I'm 100% agreement, so which makes for no good conversation.
Man, what else? I guess really let's talk about Sansa. Whoo!
Enough already. Come on. That to me, and you're probably right about the sand snakes, and I just wasn't paying close attention because I don't really care about fighting scenes. So I'm going to take you on faith that was bad, but I'm tired of rape scenes. It is they're overused in Game of Thrones, and this certainly is going to set up Sansa to hate Ramsay, but there wasn't reason enough already it just seemed gratuitous.
I don't know if that's the case.
You don't know if you feel that that's the case. Well, that is definitely the case for me.
Well, okay, but you will not know if it's gratuitous until you know where the story goes from here. Let's say it makes a significant departure from the books, and much like let's face it, Daenerys was raped in one of the early episodes by Khal Drogo, but fell in love and changed the context. And it was not gratuitous in that scene, which again, in the books, he asks for permission, but in the shows.
So you're arguing that this is a necessary scene.
I'm not saying, I'm saying we don't know if it's necessary or gratuitous yet. And
I feel that I can say for myself very confidently that it was gratuitous.
If you want to gamble Tom dollars, and in fact,
not a gamble. I cannot tell you. There's no way that this ends up feeling like it was necessary to me.
I don't know. Absent of let's say he treats her like a lady. Okay, let's go into opposite world. Treats her like a lady, takes her to bed. Now you have unresolved conflict because. Well, does she not realize that he's a terrible person? If she kills him later, she'll lack motivation for it. Because
she's already got all the motivation she needs.
It would be a different thing. I don't know. These are prescriptions I'm not qualified to write. But I'm just gonna say it's too soon to tell. Let's take another X-ray. Let's do another CAT scan next week, and then we'll see what.
It's not too soon to tell for me. You got two doctors' opinions, so you pick which doctor you want to go with personally.
All right.
Because I'm not. You're not swaying me to think differently about that one.
All right. Well, that's fine.
So what do we got left? We got Arya, which.
Yeah, not a lot to say there.
Again.
I mean, we're seeing everything progress. We have the pivoting power structure with right now. It looks like Cersei's on top. Looks like she made the smart call to empower the sparrows.
Right, getting Marjorie arrested.
Little severe, and Tommen, I think, was very well played as somebody who feels powerless and yet, ironically, is the freaking king. And doesn't.
And also Cersei faced down Olenna.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was unamused, and also. Noticed that Marjorie did not appeal to her king, but instead, as she was drug off, shouts, "Do you know who I am? I am your queen." She doesn't appeal to his power. She asserts her own as they take her away, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, well, and very much in character with the way she's treated Tommen as her little plaything, and she is the ruler. She is the queen.
Yeah.
Now, again, let's stay away from book stuff, but I think it's fair to say when something is in the show and in the book at the same time. Yeah? Is that all right?
Sure.
Am I safe, or do you think?
Yeah, no. I think it's fine. Yeah.
Marjorie does get arrested in the book.
Well, okay. And by the way,
I'd forgotten.
By the way, understand. Here's the delightful thing to all you guys who hate listening to the books. Understand the reason we talk about the books more and more is because the books are increasingly less significant to the discussion. They are a mere fantasy, a reimagining of what might be in an alternate universe. And as we get ahead of the books, it's like it literally doesn't matter. We've now been taught and trained. We've had the books beaten out of us. So when we talk about the book, we're remembering a different life. We used to be married to another delightful husband, but then that fantasy is over now.
Yeah, he left us. Well, he just stopped showing up,
yeah.
actually.
Well, he's real busy with his pub crawls and his NFL fantasy football drafts.
I'm trying to find the guy on Twitter who said this theory, which totally intrigued me. But he said, oh, here it is. Anthony Lemos, my Game of Thrones TV book divergence theory. The same story passed down through several generations by two different populations.
That's a bit high-minded. Okay. And I don't know how you would necessarily, I guess you could say that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I like that idea. It's sort of, there's Greek mythology and Roman mythology, right? And they're very similar, but they have different names and certain different things happen different ways. And I kind of, it's not essential to appreciating the TV show, but I thought it was a cool theory.
Well, okay. So a friend of mine,
like in modern industrialized Westeros,
yeah,
where King's Landing is just a tourist trap. And they're like, oh, yeah, I went to Essos, and they've got like totally different stories about the War of the Five Kings than we do. It's crazy.
So a friend of mine named Gerald Torregosa, who's now a stand-up comedian in New York, he toured with me in the very, very early days. And I wasn't watching wrestling at the time, but he was explaining to me his passion for it. And there's echoes of that with me and Justin now as he, sells me on the current storylines in the WWE. But at the time, there was a split between WWF and the WCW. And he said, I don't understand these people who say you have to pick a side, between Coke and Pepsi here. He says, if you love wrestling, you love them both. And like that's how I feel with this books versus shows debate, where it's if you love,
because I didn't feel like
not that you
had to pick a side.
I'm not talking to you right now. I'm talking to the audience who because there is a lot of people who have an opinion like, stop talking about the books. I'm a TV show guy, or it's like if you love Game of Thrones, then you want to hear about these other versions of these same songs that are being sung throughout the ages.
That's what I thought was cool about the Twitter post, is it kind of gives you a framework for reconciling those two if you needed one. I don't know. Agreed. Let us discuss The Shield.
Heck yes.
This may be the episode that makes it worth watching The Shield, in my opinion.
Oh my God. You're at a pivotal moment. I can't wait to hear what happens.
Yeah. This is the episode where they're like, hey, we always just kind of take things and turn them upside down. We're taking everything and turning it upside down in one entire episode. We're going to make Vic Mackey just randomly sleeping with Kavanaugh's crazy ex-wife, who, by the way, is Zoe from Firefly. We're going to make that the least shocking event in an episode. Like what a normal show would build an entire episode, we're kind of going to throw away as a line that Vic uses to kind of just tweak Kavanaugh later in the episode, because Vic's going to make a deal with Antoine for Lem. Then that deal is going to fall apart because Kavanaugh is going to make it, or because Antoine actually double crosses Vic from behind prison bars, and drops the rapper's body at the police break-in at the archives and kills a cop with Vic and Shane standing there. And that means that they can't let Lem make his deal anymore because they can't protect him, which means they now have to send Lem to Mexico. Lem's going to be on the run from the law now. Oh, and just as an aside, we found out you had lupus because Billings is incompetent and mentioned it after overhearing it, which means we're now going to make you Captain Wims.
Yeah, okay, so again, we talked about Mad Max beforehand, and if it does it right, it casts the spell and you buy the ticket. Have you bought the ticket? You're down with. You're just like, of course, yeah. Lem's got to go to Mexico. Of course, she's got to be captain.
Yeah, at this point, yeah, no, I have suspended all critical faculties, and I am leaning back in the roller coaster and allowing the Shield to just take me for the ride because I have no theories.
Yeah.
Except I have all the theories.
That's just it, right? Is because anything is possible, you have no idea. Nothing's possible. Yeah. It's just like
I have 100 theories, but I actually no theories all at the same time. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. I'm so excited to hear it. I as people listening to our experience will probably not be surprised. I don't trust myself to really say anything else outside of I'm glad you're at this place. And the best part
is this is the second to last episode of the season.
Of the season.
Yeah. The season finale is yet to come and is titled Postpartum.
That usually means a good thing, right? Like, you had a baby.
Means, you know what? After all the events of this last episode, which hilariously of Mice and Lem, we're just gonna have Danny have her baby, and it'll be a postpartum. It'll be a baby shower. That's what I'm expecting. This episode is just gonna take place in the hospital. You know, Danny with the cute baby, and everybody's, even Lem will kind of sneak in with a mask on and give her a little card with a gift certificate in it to Bed Bath & Beyond, and that's it, right? That's what's gonna happen.
Everything goes great.
Yeah, it's just gonna be a happy friendly.
I want to know if there's anyone out there going through your journey as you've gone through it. Is if there's anybody who's week by week,
There was one person on Twitter who asked permission to jump ahead. It was sort of trying to encourage me, like, can we please do 2 next week? And I'm like, you can do as many as you want anytime. I'm going to keep doing.
He's like, enough with this tantric nonsense. Let's go. Come on. Yeah. Dude, I'm so thrilled. And you're really going to enjoy this story.
Yeah. And the brilliance of being able to like start that episode in the morning in my hotel room, waiting for my sister to get back from picking up my nephew, having to interrupt it, but then get down in the truck, and as soon as we're on the road and the polite beginning of the journey conversation has subsided, and you're just like, all right, I'm putting on my headphones, get back in there, and God bless Verizon in Illinois, being able to stream in the middle of nowhere, outside of Mattoon, the last 20 minutes of that episode.
I'll tell you what, man. I've been traveling less as we do more of our independent podcasting, but it's like my experience has been just exquisite about mobile reception for just in general, for the ability to stream even on the road out in rural areas. I don't know how long that'll always be, but.
Well, the best part in Illinois is you can see with the cell tower you're pinging. There's nothing in between you.
Yeah, to me, that would only make it more agonizing when it doesn't work. It's like, it's right there. Yeah, it's right there.
Well, it's funny. This is totally off topic now, but I told my sister, I was like, there's what you need to do. Get one of those on your farm, and then you'll have great reception. You make a little money renting it. And she's like, actually, my friend Kelly did that, and her reception was awful.
Oh.
And it was like, oh, right, because it's not the nearness. It's the congestion on the tower. And
yeah,
that tower was very popular.
Yeah. Wow. I just got a tweet from Trolldan saying that he listens to Spoilerin Time every week before he gets to see Game of Thrones every single week. So we hope that he enjoyed getting spoiled yet again today.
And the same goes to the rest of you. We will spoil you next week.
Dang straight, man.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.